report for toxic behaviour. Hey, what's up guys, IrishTail here, and in today's video I want to talk to you guys about the new system that Ubisoft are implementing for Rainbow Six Siege for dealing with toxic behaviour. So, for those of you guys that maybe aren't aware, Ubisoft introduced a new system where in the report menu for a player, instead of having report for suspicious behaviour, it now says report for toxic behaviour. Essentially, the idea of this is Ubisoft have said, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to try and deal with the toxic element in Siege, and you now have an ability to report players who are toxic so we can deal with them. So if it's anyone breaking the terms of service of Siege, you can report them and sort of assume that Ubisoft will deal with the person. So that's the sort of things where, you know, it's kind of like abusive behaviour, bullying, abusive chat, team killing, all those kinds of things that you'd expect to be toxic behaviour. Maybe like locking down operators when somebody's not got an operator, stuff like that, just generally speaking. Obviously, you'd have to go and look at the terms of service to get the exact list of things, but generally speaking, that is what it is. It's an attempt by Ubisoft to stamp out toxic behaviour. Now, on the one hand, when you look at this is a really good thing. It means Ubisoft are acknowledging that there is a huge problem with toxicity in this game. The amount of times that I still get comments on my previous video talking about toxicity in Siege, where people say things like, this game is getting worse than ever, people team kill, people, you know, abusive in chat, people say things like, oh, clutch or kick, even if you're a top player, or they'll abuse you if they lose, even though you're the best player, whatever. Toxicity is a massive problem in gaming in general at the minute, but also in Siege, it's been a massive problem because Ubisoft haven't really done anything actively against it up until now, or at least, well, we assume they're doing something active. So I kind of thought I'd just discuss it with you guys and give my opinions on the new system, what I think to it, and whether or not I actually think it's a good thing, or if it's just something they've just done as filler to try and say, hey, look, we're dealing with it, when in reality, they aren't. So first of all, when you look at the report for suspicious behaviour button, the first thing you have to notice is that that's gone, okay? So it's just report for toxic behaviour. You can no longer report for suspicious behaviour. At least in the TTS, that might change, but currently that's the system we're presented, so that's what we have to assume we're getting. Now the issue with this is, that means that Ubisoft are no longer allowing you to report people for suspicious behaviour. So basically what that means is if somebody you think is cheating, you can't necessarily report them because that's not covered in the guidelines as what is considered as like toxic behaviour. That's cheating, which is another branch. So in theory, you can't report people for that now unless they're counting cheating now as toxic behaviour, which in truth it is, but that's not what's covered by community guidelines. So, you know, it's kind of odd that they've removed one system and replaced it with an entirely different one that does something completely different. So that's one of the things I'm not overly keen on, because obviously report for suspicious behaviour, it's when you think BattlEye isn't doing its job, you report somebody and Ubisoft, essentially, we're told, deal with it and we'll look into that player. Whether or not they do is a different story, because we've never really had any feedback on that, but that's what it's meant to do. Now, with the report for toxic behaviour, the same system applies. You report somebody, and we assume that Ubisoft deal with it. We assume that somebody is going to sit there and go, hey, look, we're going to look at this, we're going to deal with it, we're going to say, hey, you know, this player is being A or B, he's being toxic or he's not, and they'll deal with it. But the issue is that Ubisoft have always said the best way to report somebody is to provide chat logs, to provide video evidence or picture evidence of their doings. Now that to me is not impressive at all. It implies to me that they're not really looking at report cases, they actually prefer people just to hand them the evidence themselves rather than them have to look through a game's logs or the game's like files or details to see what actually went on, which again to me is not a good step. I mean, you have to consider, right, the toxic behaviour report button comes literally after Overwatch and Blizzard announced that they were going to have an entire team dedicated to dealing with toxicity. So Blizzard have been aware that there's a problem in their game, and they're getting an entire team of people to try and deal with toxicity and try and reduce it. Whereas Ubisoft, a game that's been out longer, being Rainbow Six Siege, have gone, oh, we're just going to put a report suspicious behaviour button. We're not actually going to actively put people onto this. You know, we're just going to give you a report button, and the same people that dealt with it before are going to be dealing with this now as well. And, you know, that doesn't fill me with confidence. Again, Overwatch is a newer game than Siege, and Overwatch is ahead of Ubisoft. It almost feels like Ubisoft saw what Overwatch did and went, oh, well, we're trying to be a competitive game, we're trying to be big in esports and competitive gameplay, so we need to do this. We need to put something in to try and fix this, and it doesn't feel good enough, in my opinion. At least, that's just my thoughts. And again, it comes back to this thing of Ubisoft pretty much have said the best way to report somebody is to directly go and provide evidence, and that should not be the case. I shouldn't have to do essentially their job for them. If I report somebody, I should have that safety of mind to know they are going to look at this game, they are going to look at what happened, and they are going to try and divine whether or not this person needs banning, a timeout, what have you. And it doesn't feel like that with them saying it's still better to provide evidence, because surely reporting them in that game should be the evidence. They should just be looking at that game, and they're not necessarily doing that. And I like I said, it's not a thing that I feel comfortable with. I don't feel like it's going to be very good. I think this is just like a band-aid to attempt to try and fix something that essentially it's almost like it's like Overwatch have gone, right, we're going to get an entire surgical team in here to try and find out what the problem is and fix it, and Ubisoft just went, there's a band-aid on it, that'll fix it. And we're just left to try and cope with that. And like I said, it's not good, because I think one of the great things with Siege is it's a growing game. It's fantastic. I mean, it's got 22 million copies sold to date. It's got, I think it's the 7th most watched game on YouTube. It's up there. It's got a really big fan base. It's getting bigger, and Ubisoft aren't dealing with key problems at the basic level, the things that really companies should deal with quite early on. I mean, yes, you're always going to get toxic behavior, but there needs to be something that we can rely on as a community to say, hey, they're fixing it. And to me, it's just not what's going to happen. I just don't feel comfortable in it. And again, they're trying to, essentially now what's going on is report for suspicious behavior has just been replaced with report for toxic behavior. There's actually no difference in the two, because let's be honest, if someone was being toxic, you just hit that button anyway, and if someone's cheating, you'll just hit toxic behavior. That button is so generic, we don't know what it covers, and like I said, it's a band-aid for a much bigger problem, and I think Ubisoft need to step up and realise this is something they need to fix, especially considering this is a game they've said they're going to support for another year. We're going to get another year of DLC. They want to make this a big esports game. They're going to commit to supporting it for another 2 years esports-wise, which means we're going to be getting at least another year of season, if not one more after that. And, just generally speaking, this is something they need to stem now. It's a problem, and like I said, Overwatch has employed a team of people. Why can't Ubisoft do the same? There's obviously money here in this game. They know it's a good cash cow for them, so they can't be bothered to put a team supported into this. I mean, hell, like I said in my previous video, implement an Overwatch system so we as players can sit there and go, hey, look, at least we know we're dealing with cheaters, and then you guys could focus on perhaps looking at the toxic behavior and fixing that and saying, okay, look, certain trigger words mean that this gameplay or this chat is triggered for somebody to actually manually review. And when somebody reports somebody for toxic behavior, if that person's reported enough, on a regular basis, all of the chat logs or all of the gameplay is available for a staff member to look at and go, hey, look, there's a problem here, we need to deal with it. And, it's just stuff like that. Because Ubisoft have said, right, if you get reported, right, it's not an instant ban. You can't troll the ban system, which basically means if you hit that report button on somebody who's not trolling, you can't instant ban them. That's not how the system works. But that means that somebody has to manually review that case, and based on how the report system happened before, there's no real evidence that that's going to keep happening. I mean, I've reported people for abusive chat logs and things, and nothing's happened to them. They've just gone on without any problems, and it's like, how is that a benefit to us? How does that mean that Ubisoft are actually fixing the problem? Because in reality, it doesn't. It's just it baffles me. They think that this is an okay solution. They basically just tried to fill one hole by taking dirt from somewhere else and putting it elsewhere with a new name. It's not great. It's not a good idea, and I don't agree with it. But that's my opinion. I want to hear you guys' opinion. Do you think that the new report system is going to be a good thing? Do you think it's going to be a bad thing? Do you think it's not going to actually make a difference at all? Is it just, as I've said, just a band-aid for a much bigger problem, and they're not actually going to be doing much for it anyway? It's just a bit of a save face kind of thing, because they're falling behind other games that are already doing what they should have been doing from the start. It's, it's an interesting topic. Again, because they brought this round, it makes it more relevant again, because we get to look at it and say, hey, look, they know there's a problem. Are they really dealing with it? So, like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Let me know if you're still experiencing really bad toxicity, or if it's kind of cooled off. I'll probably revisit this topic a little bit later on, once the system's been implemented into the real game. We'll see if it actually makes a difference to the levels of toxicity, see if people get banned, what have you. I'll be keeping an eye out for that to try and give you guys some updates to see if it actually makes a difference. But, like I said, only time will tell. Personally, I don't think it's a good enough solution. I think there is a much bigger problem here, and Ubisoft just aren't being as thorough and as detailed as they could be for dealing with it. But, as I said, just my opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. It's been a bit of a rambly video, but to be honest, it's one of those things that I'm really annoyed about, and I do want to talk about a lot. So, subscribe if you're new here. I do fairly regular Rainbow Six content. I'm trying to get back into it. I did take a bit of an extended break, but I'm back now. Hopefully try and keep uploading at least once a week, if not more. Obviously, it's difficult. I have stuff going on, but I'm going to try and get back into a regular schedule. But the best way to know when I go post a video is to obviously, subscribe. Obviously, like the video if you enjoyed, dislike if you didn't, and I'll see you in the next one.